Alright everyone, so this is Virtua Racing for the Nintendo Switch. This is part of the Sega Ages collection of games that Sega has been releasing for the Switch. Now if you don't know what this is, Virtua Racing is a arcade racing game that originally came out in 1992, and then the game was eventually ported over to other systems, including the Sega Genesis, which I actually do have a copy of Virtua Racing for the Sega Genesis. Pretty cool. And the cartridge is a little different. This was basically one of these games where it uses the SVP chip, which is Sega's version of the FX chip back on the Super Nintendo. This game, when it first came out, this was a $100 game back in 1994. Back in 1994, $100, that was seriously asking a lot. But yeah, fast forward to now, we have the near perfect port of Virtua Racing for the Nintendo Switch. This game is technically not out on the US or European eShop. This is actually only available on the Japanese eShop as of this video, as when I'm recording this. So some of the things is probably not going to work right now. Mainly the online match. I have not been able to get an online match yet. And maybe that's because I'm over in the US trying to play a game that's only available in Japan. But it is the system is region free, but I'm not really too sure about when it comes to the whole online thing. But anyway, you do have offline match. This is actually really cool. You can go up to 8 player split screen on a single system. No joke. You got from 2 to 8 players. That's how 8 players will look. It's pretty crazy. Not gonna lie, it's pretty crazy. Now you may be wondering, it's like, how are they able to do this? In order to go up to 8 players, you have to use Joy-Cons. And that is because the way the Switch, the operating system is set up, the Switch itself treats a pair of Joy-Con controllers as one controller. So if you use a Pro controller, it's one controller. If you use a pair of Joy-Con controllers, it's a controller, one controller. So players 1 and 2 uses player 1 Joy-Cons. 3 and 4 uses player 2 Joy-Con sets. 5 and 6, player 3. 7 and 8, player 4. Get the point? So that's how they're able to do this. Now keep in mind, when you're playing this game either 1 or 2 players split screen, the game does run at 60 frames, but after that, it runs in 30. But honestly, if you have 7 other people with you and you have all the Joy-Cons you need to do this, this is actually a pretty crazy setup, I have to say. And another cool thing about this, for 2 and 3 players, you can actually change the orientation of the screen, and on top of that, you can actually flip the screen for player 1. So you actually have 3 different ways. So if I go to player 3, you actually have 2 different ways. Player 2, you actually have 3 different ways. So the idea with this is you can have your Switch stood up vertically, or if you do it this way, theoretically, you could just lay the system flat and say like you're at a restaurant and you're with a date or a friend that's sitting across from you. Pull out your Switch, lay the system itself flat on the table. You hand your other company a set of Joy-Con or a Joy-Con controller, and there you go. You can play together. So, besides that, you got online leaderboards, which is pretty cool. This also is able to save replays, which is actually cool too. Manual, it actually just takes you to a web page, but because I'm here in the US and I'm using my US account, the manual is actually not available yet. Staff credit, and of course your online match. But let's go ahead and go to single play. And this is how it looks. Now keep in mind, when I say this is a port, I'm saying this loosely. Now M2 are the developers that brought this game over to the Switch. M2 actually has a lot of different projects that they've worked on over the years. And the latest project they're actually working on is the Sega Genesis Classic, or the Mega Drive Classic Mini, that new Sega plug-and-play system. The emulation, the software, everything, it's all being handled by M2. And because of that, I have absolute faith that that product is actually going to turn out really well. It's very rare for M2 to really screw up, and Virtua Racing is not one of them. Now you may be wondering, it's like, man, this game looks so printed, but so basic, so ugly. But keep in mind, this game originally came out in 1992. Back in 1992, when you're talking about 3D games in general, there were 3D games, but you're talking about hard driving and several others. The problem is, the 3D games that were available during the time looked a lot worse, and on top of that, it ran much slower. You're talking about like 10, 15, maybe at most. No, about 10, 15 frames. When this game first came out back in the arcades, it was running about 20, 25 frames per second. It was fairly smooth for the time. Now, of course, jump to 2019 here on the Switch, and you have a game that is running at native 1080p when docked, or if you're playing a handheld, native 720p, and on top of that, no downgrades in graphical qualities or anything. The only difference in the feature set is pretty much the same. No, it is the same, regardless if you're playing handheld or undocked. The only difference is the resolution. That's just because the Switch screen itself is a 720p screen. And the Switch is obviously able to output up to 1080p. So this is what we have here. This is one of these games that even after, what is it, like almost 30 years now? Wow, it's been that long. I'm starting to feel old. Anyway, you basically have a very old game that still holds up really well. And that says a lot, because even games, even like newer games now, even from like 4 or 5 years ago, people don't, the games today, the majority of them, they're not as fondly remembered as a lot of the older games. And back in the day, with a lot of these games, you also have to keep in mind is that it's not like today where, they try to make everything so complex. A lot of these unlocks, microtransactions, things like that. Back in the day, when you played a game or when you bought a game, it was essentially complete. It was complete. There was no like additional content or anything. There wasn't such a thing during that time. In a game like Virtua Racing, especially in the arcades, man, it was just awesome back in the day. But yeah, here on the Switch, this is a fairly, very close one-to-one recreation of the original game. Now, obviously, the sound, the 2D textures, those were pretty much lifted from the original code. But when it comes to like the engine that's used to run this game and everything, this was all pretty much recreated. Now, if I do get any misinformation, if I am misinformed about some of the information I'm telling you guys, I'm pretty sure someone's going to correct me down in the comments down below. But let's just say this: if you ever play the original and you go and play this, it's going to be really hard to tell the difference. All right, let's see if I can actually beat this. But yeah, I'm such a fan of playing games in 60 frames because it's just so much smoother. It just plays better. Ooh, am I gonna make it? Ooh, that was close. Oh yeah, look. Ooh, look at the women in the background. Remember, kids, back in 1992, this was considered high-tech graphics right here. Pretty cool. Who knew after so many years this game would still be fun to play today? At least to me. If you're a fan of arcade racers, this is a definite buy. There's no way around it. Now, if you're someone younger and you're just into more deeper games, this is not a deep game at all. You have to keep in mind, when it comes to like arcade games or games built for the arcade, they're not going to be complex. These kind of games were designed for pretty much anyone that has basic motor skills can play this. So even if you're someone that finds a controller like this complex, as long as you understand how the control stick works and you just use 2 buttons for gas and brake, you can pretty much play this. So this is not a complex game at all. It's a really simple game, and it's just fun to play. There's no way around it. It's just a fun game to play. And of course, you can change the camera angles. And just a little fun fact, this kind of transition, Sega actually had... Ooh. That's probably something they're going to have to fix there. But anyway, back in the day, there was a pen that Sega filed that when it comes to these kinds of transitions, you know, they put it like in cockpit view and all that stuff. Basically, these kind of transitions... Okay. When it comes to these kinds of transitions here, Sega actually had a patent by this. So if you ever wondered why Sega had the ability to do these kinds of transitions, but like other racing games from other game companies and publishers just snaps into view, that's because they legally could not do this because of a patent Sega had. It's pretty crazy when you think about that. But, to be honest, the whole snap type view, the whole like snap view style of changing camera angles, honestly, that's a little better anyway. So, in a lot of ways, honestly, Sega doing the pen actually did everyone else a favor because it was actually a better way of doing it anyway. Funny how things work out. But yeah, this game, Virtua Racing, is a timeless classic to me. This is one of these games that even 20 more years down the line, this game will still be fun to play. It's really simple. And you know what? The graphics might be pretty, very basic. But, you know what? It's also a style that won't really go out of style either. Because while you have other games that are, trying to make the cars and the environments as realistic as possible, well, this game is obviously in the other direction because, for one, this game originally came out in 1992. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to win this. 7 more seconds. 2, 1, 11, 10, 9, ooh. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to win this. No, boo. Oh, there you go. That's a nice way to end this race. So I'm going to play the last track, and keep in mind there's only 3 tracks here. The Sega 32X version, there was a version of Virtua Racing. Ooh, Kiss of Luck. Anyway, the 32X version of Virtua Racing had additional cars and additional tracks. So, if you want the most complete version of Virtua Racing, now there was a Sega Saturn version, but honestly, that version is actually pretty bad, to be quite honest with you. I personally pretend that version just doesn't exist. But if you want like the original version, if you want the most complete version, the 32X version is a really good version. This one is going to be pretty much on par, if not even better than the original arcade version, and certainly better than Sega Genesis version. So in a lot of ways, you kind of have to compare this to the arcade and the Sega Genesis version because feature-wise, in terms of the tracks and the vehicles you're driving, they're the same. And what's also really cool about this too is the music in the game only plays while you're playing the game, obviously. Only plays music when you cross check marks. So it's not like now where there's constantly music, either like licensed tracks and things like that. This one, at least right now, is just the road noise and the engine of your car. Checkpoint. If Sega's watching this video, or someone that works in Sega, I doubt it, but if you are, hey, you know what? Bring out Daytona USA to the Switch. Hell, just take the Xbox 360 version and just port that over. Or, you know what? Better yet, how about Daytona 2? Daytona USA 2. You know what, Sega? Re-release that game. That game has not been re-released. It's only been an arcade exclusive. Come on, Sega. We need Daytona 2. Oh my god. Am I going to be able to get this? But yeah, control-wise, this is perfectly fine. Obviously, like right now, this game's running at 60 frames, like I said earlier. It just plays fine. I mean, there's really not much else I can really say about this game. It's just a timeless classic. It plays great. It's simple. If I want to play a complex game, well, I got choices for that. But there are times when I don't really want to play an overly complex game. I just want to get a pick up and play game, and this game fits that need. Personally, for me, this is a must buy. But as of right now, if you can't wait, it is available on the Japanese eShop. I think it's 900 yen, which is about $8-9, around that range. So, if you're wanting to get this game right away, you want to get on the Japanese eShop, well, you just got to make sure you have a separate Japanese account, and you have to find a way to purchase the game. Easiest way, honestly, is to go to PlayAsia, buy a eShop redemption code. Just make sure you get the Japanese version and enter that. And that's essentially what I did. I bought essentially a $30 eShop card for the Japanese store. So I have about 20. If I'm doing a rough conversion to US dollars, about $20. So if there are other games on the Japanese eShop that's exclusive on there, just let me know what games that you recommend for me to try out, and I'll try it out, since I got $20 in there, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to end it here. That's Virtua Racing, part of the Sega Ages collection for the Nintendo Switch. As far as I know, this is only on the Switch. I'm not aware if this is on other platforms, but if it is, go ahead and get it. But I think for this kind of game, the Switch version makes the most sense, just because of the portable aspect. Anyway, that's it. Like always, have a good one. Leave those comments down below. Make sure you like this video, share this video, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and like always, have a good one. And if you do subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified on all the videos I come out with. Like always, have a good one.